Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Zahra Ar-rezziqa Pratama. I would like to presentation my paper presentation. The title of my paper presentation is Gastrodiplomacy as a Soft Power Approach in Indonesian Foreign Policy. A case study of the restaurant diaspora as gastrodiplomacy in Indonesian foreign policy. First, about context. As we know, gastrodiplomacy is a part of public diplomacy and cultural diplomacy, which is a subtle way to increase appreciation, build mutual understanding, and improve the nation image. Gastrodiplomacy is one of the elements in cultural diplomacy through the introduction of food culture. Rich variety of food a nation becomes the attraction of the nation in the eyes of the international community. In the tradition, in the food of a nation, there are values of the nation's personality which are hereditary. The culinary experience over the foreign public away interact informally with different culture in a more intimate way through flavor. In this case, food is an important thing to discuss both in space, small or large scope, because food itself is the food that is needed by humans to meet their needs. And then about issue. Tantowi Yahya said 2020, gastrodiplomacy is diplomacy through food or catering, which is believed to be a special form of soft diplomacy that is effective in establishing good relations between countries. Meanwhile, according to Adrini Pujayanti, 2017, gastrodiplomacy is a cultural diplomacy that uses food as a means to increase the nation brand awareness. Cultural potential in Indonesian culinary arts can be developed as an instrument to strengthen Indonesian diplomacy. Then, according to Engga Yuliana et al., 2020, gastrodiplomacy is understood as a form of public diplomacy to carry out through the state investment strategy in culinary-related strategies. Therefore, gastrodiplomacy uses food as a means to enhance brand awareness of the nation and emphasize the value that contain the cultural identity of a country-nation. Gastrodiplomacy can help provide an understanding of a cultured country through its special food so that it can distinguish it from other countries. And then about a gap. In carrying out gastrodiplomacy, of course, the role of diplomatic actor is needed, where gastrodiplomacy as a form of diplomacy is not an activity that can stand alone. The role of other international actors is needed in its implementations. Diplomacy is a concern with managing relations between state and other international actors. The actors of diplomacy are also expanded not only to diplomats but also to other international actors, including officials from various ministries of the interior or individuals. Non-government actors in a non-formal way use the means of exchange of view. Visit will be more flexible in playing the role of diplomacy. In this case, we can see that non-state actors have an important role in developing gastrodiplomacy. About a research question, this study was conducted to describe A. Types of source of gastrodiplomacy. B. Is gastrodiplomacy a goal to promote the country? C. What facility or infrastructure are needed to promote the country using gastrodiplomacy? Specifically, we were interested in the following three questions that guided our research. And then about the research goals, there is three main questions. First, why gastrodiplomacy an opportunity for economic diplomacy that can contribute to the nation economy? Second, who are the actors who play a role in realizing Indonesian gastrodiplomacy? And then about a literature review, there is a soft power and gastrodiplomacy and its practice. But I would like to explain about soft power before. As we know, nowadays, the world of international relations has a different pattern from previous international relations, where in the past the mobilization of violence or the paradigm of realism was often used by a country in achieving the national goals of each country. Soft power owned by a country basically depends on three main sources, namely culture, political value, and finally foreign policy. From the quotes above, Joseph Nye explained that there are three sources of soft power in a country, namely culture, political value, and foreign policy. When someone admires, even is infatuated with a culture, he will not only find out about it, but will even disseminate it so that it is known to be a fashion or them. The incoming culture will easily influence the obsessed person. Okay, about the gastrodiplomacy and its practice. Gastrodiplomacy is part of public diplomacy and cultural diplomacy, which are subtle ways to increase appreciation, build mutual understanding, and improve the nation image. Alimentation cultural diplomacy through the introduction of food culture. Food is becoming a very powerful means of non-verbal communication for changing international public perception and promoting the country of the global stage. For many citizens world that doesn't travel abroad, the culinary approach can be a strong attraction to get to know and visit other parts of the world that they don't know through the taste of other countries' food. This diplomacy provides a cultural picture of a country in terms of food, how the food is made, served, and becomes a symbol of cultural diplomacy or cultural identity. Okay, but an empirical review, there is a gastrodiplomacy as a soft power approach for Indonesian foreign policy. In this context of this research, culinary and culinary culture is used as a foundation to attract the people of the other country. Programs attract attention and public sympathy through culinary, and the culture is that stream. Gastrodiplomacy can only be found in river and Thailand shallow waters. In the second prison, the food has become food. Using the concept of gastrodiplomacy can help understand how public diplomacy is built and executed using culinary as a foundation main. In the outdoors discussion section divide into several subsections, namely culinary culture and soft power. On culinary culture section, the authors explain how a culinary becomes a culture and able to encapsulate identity country. In the soft power section, it is explained how culinary cultures become part from soft power and able to attract public attention. And then about research methods, but I'm gonna explain about the research design before. A design of qualitative case study to explain the details of participants' understanding of the scope of international relations students, where in this case is to explain whether gastrodiplomacy is a goal to advance the country. Second, participant. The study required 3 people to participate in this study to be able to take part in this research. They must meet 2 criteria, namely the first criterion being a 2019 international relations students, and the second criterion is that the student has taken an introductory diplomacy course. Next, the instrument. Interview in this study used a semi-structured interview format. The interview specifically questioned the Participant Perspective Gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia Foreign Policy. The questions are structured in the interview protocol so that researchers can use it as a guide for conducting interviews. The interview protocol consists of 10 main questions with several follow-up questions asked in response to the participant answers. Okay, about the procedure. Due to the pandemic, interviews are conducted through online meeting platforms such as Zoom, Google Meet, or the WhatsApp application. By utilizing this platform, researchers take advantage of a synchronous form of online communication. Then, on the day of the interview, the researcher explains the nature of the research and the report. Each interview was audio recorded with participant consent and then transcribed. Okay, about the data analysis, all interviews were recorded and written by the researcher. Researchers supervise the collection, interpretation, and transcriptions. Quotes are written in the participant own word and text. In the study, the data were analyzed using thematics, where the researcher concentrates on the problems that emerged from the story of the participants. This analysis resulted primarily from participant response, as responded in their interview transcript. And then the last about instrument design. This study used semi-structured in-depth interview and focused on the qualitative paradigm. Subjectivity and how people perceive, recreate, analyze, and perceive their emotional world is of great importance in the qualitative research. Participants consist of 3 students majoring in international relations from one of the university in Yogyakarta. All respondents have received several material related to gastrodiplomacy of foreign policy in Indonesia. Okay, about findings. Analysis of the participant thought exposed the opinion about gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia foreign policy. Results of the qualitative analysis indicate that components of the perception of gastrodiplomacy in Indonesian foreign policy, which construct the evaluation and subjective perception of the participant, are as follows. 1. Understanding of gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia. 2. Perception of gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia. And 3. Perception of diaspora restaurant in foreign policy of Indonesia. Understanding of gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia. All of 3 participants basically has known the gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia foreign policy. They got the information from news in conventional and social media as well as from discussion in the classroom. Conventional and social media has sparked curiosity of the participant to explore more. Seen from the academic aspect, much literature has provided the participant to understand such issue. Okay, and then perception of gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia. The writer gave a question about the gastrodiplomacy in Indonesia, especially about Indonesia using food as a diplomatic program. About Indonesia using food as a diplomatic program, one participant commented that this Indonesia has great potential implementing a diplomatic approach through gastrodiplomacy. And then the last, perception of diaspora restaurant in foreign policy of Indonesia. All of 3 participants answered the same perception about the diaspora restaurant in Indonesia. They just state Indonesia diaspora restaurant must continue to be developed and the government needs to encourage discussion from the Indonesia. It is also seen that Indonesian international relations students are very concerned about issues that occur in Indonesia itself. Then they are very interested in this topic. They even look for reading sources to increase their knowledge. This is the same as the opinion of Tantowi Yahya 2020, which states that gastrodiplomacy is diplomacy through food of catering, which is believed to be a special form of soft diplomacy that is effective in establishing good relations between countries. And then the results are consistent with the finding of study conducted by Adrini Pujayanti 2017, where, according to the author, gastrodiplomacy as cultural diplomacy that used food as a means to increase the nation brand awareness. The outcomes of the current study are also supported by another author, Enga Yuliana, et al. 2020, where, according to the author, gastrodiplomacy is understood as a form of public diplomacy to carry out through the state investment strategy in culinary study about gastro-related strategies. Indonesia foreign policy are become Indonesia foreign policy issue. The international relations students are understanding about the general gastrodiplomacy, especially Indonesia gastrodiplomacy. This study underscores the need for better approach to shape the good perception of Indonesia gastrodiplomacy. Although there is much that the Indonesian government must do in increasing brand awareness of gastrodiplomacy. However, it can be a reference for Indonesia to be better known internationally in the form of gastrodiplomacy. Alright, that's all I can say about my paper presentation. I'm sorry if I have a mistakes. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.